premise, have, 25 minutes of like ups and downs. There's not a ton of like times where we'll scrap an idea and move on. We usually kind of know what's on the platform, what's worked for us, doing twists on things that are pretty familiar. And if we take a swing with packaging, we try to keep the sort of format like something we've seen sort of before. And if we take a swing with format, we try to make sure at least the packaging, I think, will be clickable and, generally be something that like fits our channel.
Well, welcome everybody back to the Full Battery Media Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Trace, and I've got an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my name's Ted Sperling. I am the lead writer for Topper Guild. It's a YouTube channel and YouTube personality with, I think, 84 million subs right now. And awesome. I've been his lead writer for about a year and 2 or 3 months. And we can talk about my other stuff before, but that's my current role.
That's rad, man. How did you get into this career? What was it that pulled you down this path? What was the first catalyst that got you going?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I moved to LA, 15, 16, 17 years ago to, be a comedy writer. Basically write screenplays, half-hour TV shows. Like my dream job was to like write on The Office or, huge Arrested Development fan back in college. And so I wanted to write comedy. And then I started working at Lionsgate as an assistant. And I kept writing my own scripts, like either pilots or feature films. And then started getting nibbles with that, got a manager, sort of segued into like a writer's PA job on this Fox show that was created by Mitch Hurwitz, who actually created Arrested Development. And then it kind of culminated in me sort of getting enough meetings and writing enough good samples where I was in a meeting where we decided a producer wanted to kind of make a movie around King Batch, who at the time was just coming off of like a really big sort of, he blew up on Vine basically. And this producer wanted to like write a feature film about him. So we like kind of pitched out ideas, talked about like what would be funny. And we came up with this idea where it was, a guy has to join a fraternity in Deep South Central. King Batch has to join a fraternity, but he's never been to school. And it was like a house. Sorry, I haven't talked about this movie in a while. It was his dad stashed like $1 million from like a bank heist at the bottom of this like flop house in Deep South Central. And then it ended up being a fraternity house. Like, so he has to like pledge it to get the money that's at the bottom of the house. Like,
that's
so
actually
it's
an awesome story.
Yeah. Pretty fish out of water comedy. So I wrote that movie and then that got released by Lionsgate actually, which is where I used to be an assistant. So that was kind of cool. So I was like kind of riding high. I was like, I wrote a movie that got made, like that's the dream. And, I had like a pretty solid management company and just stringing together other like paying jobs after that was just easier said than done. So I was like 2019, 2020, I was looking for a day job where I could kind of use that to be a full-time writer and just get paid like a normal wage, like any sort of writing job, whether it be like, sketch comedy, kid show, whatever. And then on LinkedIn, I found a writing position for Collins Key. And I didn't know who he was. And I looked him up and I was like, he was getting crazy views. He was getting like views in like the 150 million. So I applied to that. Like there was like writing tests to like do it. And then he hired me in 2020. I think after the pandemic. So I was remote for the longest time. It was a writing team of 3. And we basically came up with YouTube titles. Every week we came up with 100 and Collins would go through them on Friday and either green them, yellow them, or just leave them blank. And green them was like, okay, that's a banger. Yellow, like, all right, rework it, but like, that's good. And we put them in like a spreadsheet, put them in like Notion. And we basically built a corpus of like super clickable ideas, and we were called the clickable ideas team, actually. So
Oh, nice.
I did that for like a couple years. I mean, I was with Collins for 4 years, but we did that for a year or two, just writing titles and watching YouTube. So then that's when I started to get really like knowledgeable about YouTube. And then after that, he started segueing more TikTok. So I started writing like TikToks for him. And he had a few big TikToks, like the drive-through one. They got like 170 million. We did a brand deal for Gel Blaster. So yeah, and then that job sort of ended because he wasn't really making as much content. And then I was like, all right, well, I have all this YouTube experience. I'm kind of in. I know how to write YouTube. What else is out there? So I started working for Zamolo for a little bit, Rebecca Zamolo, and writing for her. And then I'd already been talking to Topper, and then he was kind of like, well, we've never really even had like a writer like you. Can we sort of like create a position for you and get you over here? And yeah, so basically I went over to Topper, and that's where I've been.
That's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
when you're writing content, like, because I mean, writing a movie and writing for YouTube are primarily different. Like, are they very different? Are they similar? What's similar? What's different between writing movies and trying to create content for YouTube?
That's a good question. I would say they're surprisingly similar,
Really?
but I've you know, I've also had like people who have come from traditional sort of like put together like a writing packet or a writing test for like freelancing for us, and they don't get it quite as much. So I would say it's similar in that like the principles of like, even though this is like kids YouTube, you still want to have like tension, action, like close calls, just like stuff that's like funny, stuff that's visual, all those things that you would want to put in like a movie or TV show will be in a YouTube video, but everything has to be, I think, faster, less talky. Like you're not going to get any points for like two people sitting there having clever dialogue. You just don't want that. And I love writing dialogue, but you just don't want that in kids YouTube. So the differences are basically just needs to be faster, know the audience that you're writing for. But with traditional, I think you have a little bit more, you have more time to set things up. So yeah, this is just like it's a faster condensed version of it, but it is very similar. I mean, I write my scripts that look like essentially a TV outline, and I learned that kind of format from working as a writer's PA on that Mitch Hurwitz show, Running Wild. So there's a lot of overlap, but yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because for a long time, I know a lot of YouTubers were kind of not so, they were, I'm trying to figure the right word. I remember like I saw this advertisement for a famous YouTuber, and he was like, and I had spoke to someone in their team, and they said, "Oh, we specifically try to stay away from people who are in traditional TV because they have these ideas that are really rigid." And it's interesting now because a lot of them are, a lot of YouTubers are kind of bringing in more of those people now because those people have an understanding of scale, they have an understanding of how to grow things and how to operate at a kind of just this, I'm not going to say more professional way, because so many YouTubers are super professional now, but just at a different level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it is. It's sort of, I kind of see both sides of it, because I think some people from traditional have the, I guess, ability or tendency to almost look down on, not even almost, look down on YouTube, right? So it's like, if you went to like NYU Film School or AFI or something and you end up writing for a YouTuber, you think that you've gone like, oh my God, this is hilarious. P.S. I actually wrote a TV pilot about a guy who won Sundance and ends up writing for like a 24-year-old YouTuber. And so like his boss is like much younger than him. But yeah, I think traditional people, if they want to respect YouTube, they will be fine. But I think if you go in thinking like you're too good for it and you've been writing like really cool features or really cool like half-hour live action stuff for adults, and you don't like watch a bunch of YouTube and like kind of get the whole ecosystem, then it won't work. And that's why I think people are like, oh, we don't want to hire traditional people, because they think they just know how to do things like the way they do. And I think you have to respect how smart YouTubers really are in general, and how smart the editors are, how much we think about these episodes that seem maybe to like, if I showed these to my friends back home in Portland, they'd be like, there's no way you write like a 10 to 15 page script and do multiple table reads and like punch things up and rework things. You'd be like, this is like a camera and a couple friends doing hijinks. And I'm like, no, it's way more involved than that. So I think traditional people have to respect it, if they want to be in.
I think that that has to be it. Like, it's like a funny comparison. I remember the early days of the UFC, and like they had all these guys who are like, the dude who was a boxing guy only, the dude who was a wrestling guy only, and then suddenly all these people came along and they're like, oh, we're doing MMA. Like, well, what the hell is that? And these people initially were really leery of this new medium, but yet finally there was this like, wow, these guys are doing amazing things and they're exceptional at what they do. And there's this level of respect that comes up because, people, I think that, traditional media was one to go, oh, YouTubers, it's just this fringe thing. Man, these guys, people are far from fringe anymore. Like YouTube, my daughter and her generation knows YouTube stars way more than they know movie stars. Like, she knows all of these different YouTuber stars, and she could pick any YouTube star out from a lineup, but put a bunch of different famous movie stars in front of her, she's not going to know who most of them are,
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, yeah, I mean, I remember kind of realizing that back when I was first working on this like movie for King Batch. I had a friend who, she was an exec at TBS, and she was like, we did a focus group. She worked in like scripted comedy, and we did a focus group with like, 12-year-olds. And this was back in like 2016, 2017. It's like all of them want to be YouTubers or social media stars, or like at the time, Vine stars. None of them want to be directors, movie stars, etc. And like, yeah, so yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy how big it is, and also kind of how new it feels too. In a way, I think is that just the creator economy, as there's a finite number of channels that scale to a point of hiring like dedicated writers, and it's only going to get more. But it is way more than it was like 3, 4, 5 years ago. Like I've been the full-time YouTube writer since 2020, which is kind of crazy, but it'll get more common, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think so. And I think that one of the things too is, I think that I was having a discussion with someone recently about AI and everything, and I think that there's this place for the human touch and the premium touch, and that people are going to see more of like, I know that there's going to be a bunch of people who spam the market, just spam with like ton of stuff. But I really feel like the creativity is still super there, whether that be artistic camera angles or artistically, are really well written scripts, man. But and that leads to me to ask this question, like, when you sit down to write, what are you actually solving for first? Are you looking for a hook, a story, a joke, retention, shareability? Like, how do you decide which one matters most for any specific video?
It's a good question. I think we're pretty big into our intros. I mean, first off, obviously packaging is good, but I guess it was more of a question about scripting. But our intros have to be visual and big and get I know that like the guys at TBNR Preston have something about like, it's got a promise something in the first like X seconds. I think it used to be like 15, 30 or 30, 60, 90. I think it's got to be way more compressed now, but like you have to like know what the video's about. A lot of times you want to get a why, and you want to know that you're going to like pay it off like very, very, very early in the video. But when it comes down to like what we do is we have an intro that, feels like a version of the title. Like, today I did this. And I think from traditional screenwriting, people talk about goal, stakes, urgency. So like we have like a goal, there's stakes. Like, if I don't do this, then like the bounty hunter is going to get me. An urgency, like by the end of the day. So like we try to get like that out there pretty quickly, with extremely visual, cool shots that are going to kind of give you a taste of what that video is. So you're kind of just proving like it's not clickbait. Like what you clicked on is going to be like awesome and cool and have cool visuals. And like that's the premise of the video. And if we can get a why in there, even better. But yeah, that intro is huge. And then, yeah, when it goes in like the first non-intro scene, like that's got to be action, hopefully as soon as possible, but not pointless action. It's got to be like on story and make sense. But you know, if we have to set something up to make it like a real and cool caper with like 2 lines of dialogue, then awesome. Then go for it. But it's not gonna be like a 2 shot of people talking. So
I like that because you're sitting there and you're looking at this picture. It's like I look at any story that I'm writing as like a painting, and I've gotten certain things that I'm trying to create. Like you go to the museum, like what makes you want to look at a picture, man? Like what is it in that picture that really hooks you? There's got to be something in there, but at the end of the day, you're looking at this whole composition. So whether you're looking at the thing that pulled you in, I mean, this and humans have been doing this since like ages ago, like since ancient times. Whether ever artwork you're doing, like, is there something that pulls you into that story, But what does your first 3-second process look like? Do you start with a line, a visual, a title, a premise, or a twist? How many versions do you usually test internally? Like, what's going on up here, man?
yeah, honestly, it moves so fast. We do a 25-minute long form episode video every week. So when I'm sitting down, I am like usually writing the intro and I'm usually kind of going like, does this format hit something that we've already done? And can I use that sort of as a template? But how can I make it different so it doesn't feel too familiar? So if we're doing like a manhunt video, it's when like, Topper's on the run from like the cops because he was framed for like stealing, Huntrix from K-pop Demon Hunter's Lamborghini, something like that. I know that we did like a Ronaldo like Lamborghini one, so I'll kind of pull up that script. To be honest, things move fast, and it's like I'm like, wait a second, I know that this is going to have like a certain sort of, he's going to have security footage, he's going to have challenges, maybe light on the challenge for that one, or if it's a murder mystery, I figure out like, oh, is this the format where we do like 6 challenges and like 7 suspects and we reduce suspects each time? So there's a set number of formats. That said, we've also kind of like created formats and come up with hybrid formats. So that's sometimes just creatively coming up with a cool story. And it usually comes up with having Topper in some sort of, jam. So he needs to work hard to get out of it. And because I think a scene will feel flat if you don't know what he's like trying to do or what he's trying to like avoid or get out of. So it's really being about, does this like premise have 25 minutes of like ups and downs, and there's not a ton of like times where we'll scrap an idea and move on. We usually kind of know what's on the platform, what's worked for us, doing twists on things that are pretty familiar. uh and if we take a swing with packaging, we try to keep the sort of format like something we've seen sort of before. And if we take a swing with format, we try to make sure at least the packaging, I think, will be clickable and, generally be something that like fits our channel. So yeah, if that answers your question, I don't know.
It does, man. And it's like I like the idea that you talked about. You take him, the character, and put them into a challenging situation, and people are pretty aware that there's going to be this way this person gets out of it. It's I mean, that's like great storytelling. You have a character and then they start off and then they enter a challenge, and like that's been good storytelling since the ancient Greek and Roman times. It's like there are ancient plays where here's a character, life gets tossed upside down, and how do you navigate out of that? And I think that that's something that people stick around for, and one of the things that I think of is that people we'll have lots of reasons that something doesn't get going, and whether it's like they logistically don't prepare for it, or they shut it down, in pre-production, or like the idea, like I was saying, is that we can't pull this off. But I wanted to ask you this, like, what are the most common reasons a concept dies before it ever gets filmed? And like, are there red flags that tell you this is not going to hit, or the opposite, that you're like, this is going to be something good?
Yeah, I would say with the sort of YouTube cluster that we're working with, we have enough similar creators that we're kind of seeing what's on the platform and what's doing well. And, sort of adjacent to that, I would say if we use something with kind of like borrowed interest, or like some sort of IP, like whether it be Ronaldo, K-pop Demon Hunters, Squid Game, if that seems to be like dying down and that's not like big anymore, and like our videos have been like declining in views, and that trend just isn't hot, if a creator does like another Squid Game before and it tanks, like that's a pretty good indicator that like we shouldn't do like Squid Game in real life anymore. Um, so as far as stuff that's like, dies for other reasons, I can't really think of something that's died for another reason. It's really just based on like, you know, we try to do the best version of stuff that is kind of like on the platform and the stuff that's in our voice. So, if it's extreme camouflage, if that's died down, like that's not even an IP, that's like a trend. If extreme camouflage dies down, we'll like look at like, do we still want to do that? Secret room stuff, that was like a huge trend like a year and a half, 2 years ago. If that dies down, we have to like, be like, are we going to still do one? K-pop Demon Hunters is really hot now. Will it be hot forever? Probably not. So we have to kind of monitor that and see like, oh, if Zong or Rebecca puts up a K-pop Demon Hunters video, does it crush, or does it like kind of sit there? So yeah, it's really just kind of, I think a lot of times based on packaging, because I think if you have good packaging, you can figure out how to make the format like dynamic and interesting by tweaking it and, finding kind of what that drive is.
I love that, man. I the one of the things too is like, there's always a deep question that I think people are trying to answer in a video. Like, I love, that's one of the things I like, and I think that is an underlying tone for Mr. Beast videos, is what would people do for money? What would you do for $1,000? Would you fly to Paris for $1,000? No, man, I got stuff I got to do. Would you fly to Paris for $5,000? Yeah, I'm kind of busy right now. I don't know if I could pull it off. Would you fly to Paris for $10,000? Yeah, let's keep talking. Would you fly to Paris for $100,000? Bonjour. I mean, like, yeah, hey, there you go. And it's like, but that's an age-old question. That was, that's the question that was asked in, I think, Leaving Las Vegas and some other movies. Like, you look at these, what would people do for money? And it might seem like it's just people doing challenges, but nah, man, he's asking a fundamentally deep question of like, I think there was like a video he had where it was like 0 to 100, and like he had someone from each age that was challenging each other, and like it was brutal to see what some of these 50 somethings or 60 somethings were willing to do for cash, man. They were just like ganging up on little kids and stuff, and like right there it was this fundamental like attempt to look at what would people do for money. And it's wild like that, because I think that, again, those concepts, whether it's on YouTube or whether you are, writing a classical play for the stage, man, it's going to be the same thing. You're still looking at these underlying concepts that you're asking. What would you do for family? What would you do? I studied acting. I studied with the wonderful teacher Ivana Chubbuck in Los Angeles, and she has this great technique that she developed. And three of her basic points are this: like, what is your character's goal and objective in the scene? What is your overall objective for the whole film? And what are your challenges from getting there? It's like I try to tell people like this, right? So if you don't have obstacles or challenges, let's imagine a movie where my wife and daughter are in the building next door. That's a big 23-story building. And I'm over here in my house and I need to go rescue them. So I take the elevator down to my house, walk across the street. I press the elevator button and it goes up. And I'm like, hey guys, let's go home. And they walk in the elevator. We go back down and come back home. It's a pretty shitty movie. There's
Yeah. Yeah.
there's nothing that's stopping you. But say, okay, well, let's throw some challenges in there. Power's out. Oh shit. And now I got to walk up all 25 floors of that movie. What else? There's a mafia in the building. Oh shit, mafia in the building, and they're holding my wife and my daughter hostage. Well, that's even fucking harder. And each floor is filled with a henchman that I've got to fight my way through to get to the top. Well, that was the plot of the movie The Raid. Such a good movie. And his brother was top of the building, and this dude had to do kung fu to get to the top. Great movie. But I think that you could do a YouTube video about that where, you got to rescue your family. And each level, there's a new challenge in the building. It's the same concept that you're looking at. It's just a different form.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think what you brought up too is just challenges and conflict. I think it comes down to a lot of times when people read a traditional screenplay, it's like, oh, this wasn't working because there's no conflict. People were too simpatico. There wasn't enough there wasn't enough external challenges in their way to make it interesting. And this is kids YouTube that I don't know exactly our audience, to be honest. I think it's probably 6 through 9. I don't think 11, 12-year-olds are necessarily, maybe they are, but I think I watch with my 4-year-old, and it's it doesn't matter if it's for pretty young kids. You still need to have conflict, things being difficult, things to overcome, tension. We're big on close calls. If we do a secret room video and you want someone walking by and looking right up against them, being oh, is it, it's stuff that you see in Scooby-Doo. It's stuff that it doesn't matter if it's for kids. It needs to have that same level of tension and a feeling of difficulty for the protagonist. And it's I think before I got into this, I might have thought for kids YouTube it's to be a little bit more frivolous or something. I'm just if they're having fun and goofing off, but it's you want a kid to believe that bounty hunter is going to come get them, even though we know it's very kind of over the top. But yeah.
Yeah. It's so true, man. And I love watching the one where people are running from a bounty hunter and shit. That's just awesome, man. Because you think about it, you sit there and you watch a movie and you see this movie Great Escape, great movie, one of my favorite movies from back in the day with
Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen, man, and what was his other name? The other guy. He's he's the original archetype for what John Barenthal is. I can never remember his name though. But great movie. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll look that up in a second. I'll throw it up when I edit the podcast. But you sit there and they break out of the jail and wow, look at how these guys pull it off. They tunneled out of a prison and then they escaped. But you sit there and go, dude, could I do that? Could a normal person pull that off? I was dude, I would love to see Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, if anyone from Mr. Beast is listening, let Mr. Beast try to recreate The Great Escape with a team of people that they have to tunnel out of a prison camp and then try to see if they can tunnel out and poke out and escape from prison guards. That would be rad. And I mean,
that would be sick. Yeah, that would be dope.
Right? That'd be a great video.
Or Escape from Alcatraz. Yeah, it's like those eternal questions. When you're a kid, you're oh, could you survive quicksand? Could you escape Alcatraz? All these, those are
right?
Cool. Yeah.
And we used to look at those things with movies, but people began to lose faith in Hollywood because Hollywood always had to let people win. And, sometimes the thing with YouTube, people lose, and that's interesting to see as well. Now, I want to ask you this, because how do you structure a short video? Because we're talking long form, it's easier, but how do you structure a short video so people keep watching?
Yeah. So I learned a lot about shorts when I was working with Collins Key. And so when he sort of stopped doing YouTube long form, he got really into TikTok and YouTube shorts. And his big thing was always engaging opening, reason to stick around, and a replayable moment. So basically engaging opening. Also, we call it the hook. Why is someone gonna watch it? It can be a verbal hook along with a cool visual, how many chocolate bars will stop a bullet? Boom. Okay. I want to know. With like maybe a cool visual with that, in TikTok, it can be, a very attractive person. Like that's an engaging opening doing like dancing or doing something colorful. Um, reason to stick around a lot of times is something funny, something, what this video is going to be. And then a replayable moment. A lot of times it's something visual that is, sometimes, you do a little trick where you cut it off a little early. So you're like, oh, wait, did that happen? But yeah, reason, replayable moment a lot of times is like, I don't know, a nut shot or something like kinetic and big and something that, like people would go back, literally, rewatch the TikTok or, go back and, yeah. So, yeah, you don't have that much time with it, so it's got to hit you from the beginning. But then it's also got to make sure that you don't, that's the whole like reason to stick around. Like, is this video going to be good or answer the question or pay off the hook? And then the replayable moment, something that like something cool happens.
Yeah,
So
I love that, man. Well, I want to ask you this: like, Topper Guild is known for big, simple, high-click ideas. Like, how do you find simple concepts that still feel fresh and not like the audience has already seen it 100 times? How do you keep something original? Because I mean, we're getting into the time, especially now where everyone copies everyone. How do you keep things
mhm.
original, man?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as far as like simple and clickable, like we'll do alts of titles. I mean, I've written so many titles that I know how to like the whole, I remember Mr. Beast did some vid summit thing like 7 years ago about how like, if it's like I survived, I spent 24 hours I spent a night in the rainforest. Like, how do you plus that up and make it interesting? So I take out spent, put in survived. I survived, and then put like a clock on it, 24 hours, like, and then, in the rainforest or world's most dangerous or something. So like all those little tricks about making titles different, like switching orders of stuff, like making it sound clean. Like you don't want to bump on anything. It just needs to sound like, okay, I get it. Like there's no like, oh, I thought you meant this. So like the title needs to be simple, intriguing, clickable. And how do we make things different? I think it's, sometimes it's bumping a little bit of everything, like with a little bit of twist on something new. So it's like if the packaging, like maybe you do a thumbnail you haven't seen before. Don't do a tired thumbnail. If you're gonna do like another extreme camouflage or secret room, find a situation or a title that you haven't like seen before, even though that general format has been done. And then in the videos themselves, it's like we're big on, you try not to repeat a challenge. You try not to repeat a bit. You try to do, if you're going to do a chase scene, you try to do other stuff other than like throwing like balls behind you or like, putting slime on the ground. Like you try to mix up those things. So, when a kid's watching it, they don't feel like, oh, I've seen this before. And then maybe when an older kid's watching it, they're not like, oh, this is lazy. Like this is, stock or whatever. So I think it's about like, we're probably not going to reinvent the wheel on something and take a crazy swing, but I will say that we put a lot of effort into making a thumbnail just freaking cool. And even if that's based off like a mashup of, oh, we saw this thumbnail from like 4 years ago that someone did, but then we saw this other image. Like, what if we put like this here and this here? Or sometimes they're completely original. Like, what if, or I'll look at old movie posters for like thumbnail ideas. Just like what looks like kind of iconic and cool. Like I've always wanted to do one that's kind of like the Bruce Willis and Die Hard, like going through their event. That'd be a dope thumbnail. That style.
That would be an awesome
But yeah,
YouTube video as well, man.
yeah, it would be, yeah.
Recreate Die Hard. Could you pull off Die Hard? Dude, another video I want these guys to do. Someone on YouTube, please redo Die Hard and see if an average person could actually pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, and now you wouldn't even have to. It would probably end up being original enough. You wouldn't even. I don't know if the IP or borrowed interest even helps with this age. So you might as well just call it like I escaped the building with terrorists.
Right? 100%. Yeah, and I didn't die in a hard way. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little Easter egg for the adults.
Yeah, right. When a video hits, like when a video really hits. Gets high views and people really talk about it and it stays relevant for a long time. where do you see thumbnails, titles, first frames, and pacing? How much of that is writing, and how much of that is packaging? How much of it is just this other factor that we can't even figure out what that is, though, too?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, like, I'm going to borrow something that Jordan Manor said on like I believe John, is it Yanushi? I don't know exactly how to pronounce his last name, but he said something that was basically like 85%, the success or views or of the video, 85% of it comes down to like packaging, like did they click on it? So title and thumbnail, like concept. Um, so I would say, probably similar. I would say like they have to click on it. And then I would say it's also our job to make sure that they don't get bored or click away or feel like it's not going to pay off what that title and thumbnail is. I mean, I remember there's I think the same Vid Summit thing I watched probably in early 2020, Mr. Beast. It's like YouTube's about two things: did they click and did they watch? And it's like the first job is getting them to click, so that's title thumbnail. And probably for the age group I write for, it's probably just thumbnail. Like I watched my 4-year-old; he's probably not reading like I survive, you know, I stole K-pop Demon Hunters, secret diary. He's not going to read that. He's going to see like the K-pop Demon Hunters like behind Topper and he's running and like the cool colors and he's going to be like, yeah, I want that one, daddy. So that, it's really just twofold, because if you have a banger title and thumbnail and the beginning of the video is boring, then it probably won't be a banger because they'll click off. So I would say it starts with title, thumbnail, and then if you can just make sure that like, people feel like it's going to be paid off and it's a good video, then yeah.
I love that, man. It's like you got to get some. It's like what do you call it? Back in the day when movies, you young kids don't understand this, but when we were going out to the movies all the time, they had to have really freaking good trailers. And like, I remember looking forward to trailers. Like I'd go into a movie and just be absolutely blown away, like by seeing the trailers that were coming out. And, because it was so dynamic and they hooked you, they really hooked you. And I feel like right now, those same elements are going into the first part of whatever long form content or even short form content people are doing. There is this visceral thing that grabs you, and maybe it is like, someone getting kicked in the crotch,
Yeah.
I don't know, man, but there's something that pulls people in. And I want to ask you this because, you have seen videos that have absolutely crushed it, but I'm sure that there's been some that flopped. And, what did that teach you? How did what was something that you said, oh, this is gonna be great, and it didn't go great? And how did you guys approach realizing what it was that was not the thing that made it not perform as well, or the vice versa? Like that video that you thought, well, this is gonna be okay, but it absolutely crushed it.
We had, for the latter, we had a video that was like I Survived Ronaldo's house tour that came out like probably one of the first 10 videos I wrote. I've probably written over 50, 55 long form videos for Topper. And it's a house tour video, so it doesn't quite have like I think a lot of times the videos that do well, even with our audience, it's young, is like kind of some intrigue, like I murdered Mr. Beast, or I escaped something, or I'm on the run, or I was framed for doing something. So like a house tour doesn't necessarily sound super like saucy or whatever. Like, so I would say like that one's probably like I think our third highest viewed video on the channel right now. I Survived Ronaldo's house tour, and it was like sort of 3 bits where Topper first goes to his best friend's house. It doesn't even go to Ronaldo's house. But there's a really just funny bit where like Shutter's his best friend. Like he's in every video, kind of like the classic like funny sidekick guy. He has like a girlfriend that was like a new character that's like super overbearing. It's like, Shutter, who is this? And like the whole thing, like I remember working on that and making sure like, because it was kind of a new format for me. And I was like, each bit of this house tour needs to have like a super funny bit and not just be like, it can't be like a phase rug or like an older audience house tour where it's like, yo, this is like a really cool room that I have where I game. Like it's not that. Like our shit's highly scripted and highly like funny for kids. So like it was a bunch of bits of like, so Shutters loves junk food, but the girlfriend doesn't want to have him, eat that kind of stuff. So there's like a fridge that has like a poster of vegetables, and when he opens it, like Shutter's like, here's all my junk food. And then there's like another room where there's a really creepy like tea party going on with like stuffed animals, and like the girlfriend like thinks they're real. Like, and I sort of sold that bit from like a Calvin and Hobbes strip. Like I steal from like so much shit that like people who I work with had never heard of. Like I'll take Calvin and Hobbes, I'll take Spinal Tap, I'll take Simpsons, I'll take and like make them my own. But like it is fun to like throw in like, oh, there's like a classic Simpsons style joke, which is sort of a tangent. But yeah, the house tour video, I will do that. I'll get on. But yeah, the house tour video, it's like, a house tour video doesn't sound quite as crazy as other ones, but like that one crushed because I think we put effort into like just making everything super like dense as far as like bits and funniness.
I love that, man. I was curious too about as you make those. Do you adapt on the fly as you're filming them? Are you sitting there working with the team to rewrite things, or is it something that like once the script is out there, you just kind of stick with it? How are you adapting to the real world changes in filming?
Yeah, so essentially, I think with other channels, like when I was with Rebecca, I was on set for a little bit. Right now, it moves so fast that I need to be working on the next episode. So, um, as far as being on set, when they shoot at the house, I'll like walk by and kind of be like, "Yeah, that sounds right." And like sometimes they'll like ask me a question, tell me like, "Hey, that makes sense, right?" Or like, "Wait, why did I do this?" And I'm like, "It's because this is because our videos get sometimes kind of complicated when we do like a manhunt or a mystery." We did like 3 videos with Mr. Beast actually, um, and I'll get into that later. But that was cool. But yeah, I think they Topper can like direct. We have a producer that can direct. We do multiple table reads, so we know exactly what's happening as we go into it. So there's not like a lot of huge need for rewrites. But if there's a rewrite on set, I think Topper sees opportunity to do something kind of cooler. Um, and yeah, I'm literally just in the room while they're filming, like writing next week's episode and trying to get that done so we can do like a table read on Wednesday, another table read Friday, approximate days, like, moves too fast out of schedule to shoot on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday
That's awesome,
of the
man.
next week.
So it's quick. Everything's moving really quick, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Uh, w- um, when you start to think about balancing, because one of the things too that I see people talking about is the algorithm, the algorithm. Yeah, how do you balance writing for the algorithm versus writing for humans? Because they're not always the same thing. Like I've seen channels that get punished by the algorithm, but people love their content. And I've seen the opposite be true as well. People that, get more virality, but it's just because there's something in their element, there's some element that keeps kind of pulling people in initially, but it's not like they stay. How do you pay attention to all of this? Graphs, comments, and rewatches. And how does that adjust your writing?
It's a good question. I mean, I think I will say is compared to other people who work in YouTube, I'm less of like a data guy. Like I understand, CTR, AVD, like all these sort of stuff. I understand it generally, but I would say I try to make a video that feels cool and has like cool visuals, cool bits, a cool storyline. Like we did a Mr. Beast video and I was like, we're doing a murder mystery. And I was like, I'm going to try to do something where instead of one person being the culprit, I want to do all of them did it. So, and it was basically based on the Agatha Christie thing, Murder on the Orient or Murder on the Orient Express, when they like all stabbed the person because they all had a reason to do it. So like that just makes me happy that that's cool and like different, because most murder mystery type things in this genre are, oh, one person did it and it's like, oh, I did it, well, you got me. Which is also cool. But I was like, so I let kind of like, I think I let editors, head of production, other people kind of sort of like help me understand sort of like what's going on with the algorithm and what's going on with like trending, topics or titles, but like once I know that like what the title is and what the format is, I'm just trying to write like a really cool video, and then hopefully that sorts itself out later. And I think editors are really good at knowing like data. Um, Topper's really good at knowing like, oh, you know, all YouTubers are like on YouTube Studio a lot. So like they know like, oh shit, this one didn't, no one clicked on this one, or like this one didn't hit. I'll look through comments, but comments are, comments probably don't give you enough of a discerning sort of viewpoint, because I think the people that do go to comment on sort of kids YouTube comment are just kind of positive, like they're kind of like, oh, Shutters is funny. That was funny when you did that. So I don't really like learn a lot from the comments. I just try to make a really, really cool video that I'm proud of, and also feels like it meets the audience's sort of like expectations. Yeah.
If you had to teach a brand new writer to make videos that consistently get high views, what would the first steps be? And what would you tell them they really need to be focusing on?
Great question. I'm actually sort of in the early process of starting kind of like an online writing school, because I know so many people who
Nice.
come from like, right now it's called YT Writing School. It'll be ytwritingschool.com. So I had to throw a plug in there, but still launching it. I want to like start like online classes in June, because I've kind of realized, coming from traditional, that there's so many screenwriting classes, UCLA Extension, UCB, whatever, like screenwriters that have done it. And there's people who want to come from traditional to YouTube, and I see them turn in like packets and samples, and they're not quite getting it. And I just think
Yeah.
that there's room for that as this grows and more channels need writers. But to answer your question, I would say, honestly, it's the same way they teach you how in a TV writing book. It's the same way they teach you how to write a TV episode. Like a TV writing book from the 90s that I probably bought in like 2008 will say, watch your favorite episode, pause it, and write down everything that happens, like scene for scene,
Mm,
and kind of know like what that looks like. Like
yeah.
know what a stolen beat sheet kind of looks like. Because when you're first doing it, you might be like, oh, was that a full scene, or is that a full beat? Like you even get better just doing that. So just like know like, okay, basics. Like there's an intro. Okay, there's a scene where like all the characters are in it, and then they split up, and then okay, the bad guy who's searching for their extreme camouflage spots is going to come at the midpoint, like 12 minutes out of 24. Just like knowing that, and like doing it on even a basic level, like a one-liner, almost like on a call sheet, like, you know, Topper and crew runs from Bounty Hunter. Like there's micro beats within that, but like be able to just sort of know that, but then also think more visually than you might for like, you know, other mediums. Like think like, will a kid get this joke? Can I do something that's like if a scene feels talky, it's like, to defend that, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to strip down the dialogue, and then a car is going to come out of nowhere and like hit like a garbage can of balls, because like kids will like that, but like find a reason for it. So like there's a little bit of like kind of cartoonish like stuff where it's like, can I get an elephant toothpaste explosion? Can I get like something exploding, or like
Yeah.
someone jumping off like a cliff or something to throw in there so it's not talking? So think really visually, and then
Mm,
yeah, I could talk about this for hours, to be honest. But yeah, it's just sort of knowing like structure, and that there's really going to be no scenes that are off story.
mm,
There's going to be no scenes that are going to be, boring, and then just know what cluster you want to write for, and just study that. And there's a good
yeah.
chance that if you study it and kind of like half copy it first and then kind of put your own spin on it, then you will be able to end up writing an episode. But it does take practice, and it does take watching a lot of it. I think a lot of people think like, oh, I wrote blankety blank, and I've talked about this, but like I can write YouTube. It's like you want to be able to watch enough so you can be like, oh yeah, there was a really cool Ben Azelart video from 2 years ago where he did blankety blank. What if we did that, but that, like that's really helpful too, because it's like certain things are proven. We've seen how they work on screen. Like we've seen that they can be shot. So yeah.
I love that, man. Well, where can people find out more about you and your course and everything that you do, man?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. I do have a website. It's www.tedsperling.com. That's and then I also have www.ytschool.com and ytwritingschool.com. And I believe that'll be live by the time this gets edited. But yeah, I think it'll be a cool thing to yeah, I think there's a lot of people that want to get into it, and there's gonna be more and more writing jobs, writing specific jobs on YouTube in the next 5, 10 years.
I love that, man. And I hope so, because I think it's such a great place and there's so much great content to be made. And I think if people can study the greats and get out and learn, you know what I would love? If I were to recommend something for YouTube writers, I'd recommend go out and read classics, man. Watch the classic movies, go look at classic scripts and how people were crafting stories. Because I think storytelling is storytelling, and whatever you're doing. I'm heading back I have another podcast called Barrels and Roots, and it's all about wine. I grew up in the
It's cool.
Napa Valley, man. I love wine
Mhm.
country. But like one of the things I think that industry doesn't get, like they try to show pictures of the wineries and show these beautiful things. But I'm trying to tell the stories of the winemakers. I'm trying to tell the stories of the people making it, the people in there doing it, because I think those stories are more interesting. And I think that if you can tell good stories, people come for stories. And I think that whether it's in Star Wars or Disney or wherever, man, or YouTube, people like good stories and they stick around for good stories. And people can see through really bad stories.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that's what I think you're saying. Yeah, I think we're on the same page because like that's what I was saying about like earlier when it's like the principles that apply to like screenwriting apply to like YouTube writing. It's like,
100%.
a protagonist you like challenges, conflict, like make it hard.